Are you considering divorce? Are you dealing with it now? Are you on the other side and not sure what comes next? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show with your host, Lisa C. Decker.
Hello and welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show. I'm Lisa Decker, your host and the founder and CEO of Divorce Money Matters and Divorcetown USA, the sponsor of this show. I'm also a real estate collaboration specialist in divorce and a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst. And today we're going to talk about, it may be Halloween, but your divorce doesn't have to be a horror story. So I want to share a little bit about traditional litigated divorce, because that's where each spouse hires their own attorney. You have a lengthy discovery process and hearings are held. Mediation is ordered, sometimes successful mediation, sometimes not. And if it's not, the whole case is presented to a judge or a jury who will decide the entire outcome of your marital estate. The schedule your kids will follow, and they don't typically consider how any of this will impact you financially, physically, or emotionally. Did I mention that the average divorce costs between $15,000 to $25,000 per spouse? And that's not including a trial, should it come to that. Well, that's a scary story in itself, but we're going to be talking with a legal expert today who is part of the Amicable Divorce Network, and we are going to be talking about alternate routes through Divorcetown besides Bigger Bucks Boulevard and Duke It Out Drive. And we were going to talk about a new, better way to divorce that's lower cost, lower conflict, and ensures that you and your divorce team have the right professionals helping you with the different aspects of the process. So, Melody Swilling, welcome to the call.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
We're so happy that you're here on the show today. Melody is a family law attorney and certified amicable divorce professional. And I'm happy to say that as of this weekend, we both attended a training for the Amicable Divorce Network, and we both now hold that designation. It's a wonderful thing and a wonderful training we just experienced. And Melody works with folks as they help their clients work cooperatively, not combatively, through the divorce process. Melody graduated from the Florida Coastal School of Law, and her bar admissions include Georgia Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court of Georgia, and the U.S. District Northern District of Georgia. She is also the secretary of the Cobb County Bar Association, the Family Law Section, and is a member of the Forsyth, Gwinnett, and Atlanta Bar Association, of which she's on the editorial board, published works, and presentations. Very busy lady here. And we're so lucky to have her with us here today. Her practice, Swilling Family Law, won Best of North Atlanta in 2021, and Melody was a Rising Stars for Super Lawyers in 2021. Well, welcome to the show today, Melody. I am so thankful that you are here. Just want to say to folks, we were expecting to have Dennis Collard, another colleague, with us, but alas, court called, and so he was not able to join us. So please tell us a little bit more about your perspective on the amicable divorce process. What is it, and how does it compare to a traditional litigated divorce?
Well, so traditional litigated divorce, like you said, is a very expensive process. As litigators, I think we've become jaded as to how scary it is for families to put their lives in the control of someone who may have gotten cut off, on the way into court. The judge may be having a bad day, and now they're deciding your children's lives, and that's scary. And I think litigators don't remember how scary that is for families. What I enjoy about the amicable process is that we can put control back in the parties. We can do it on their time and tempo. We can do it privately, right? There's a lot of times families don't need a public forum to explain why they were bad spouses. And what I find is if we can have parents part of the solution, right? They're coming up and collaborating on what the parenting plan is going to be, what the child support is going to be. You have less incidents of someone failing to follow through, right? If you have buy-in to the solution, you're going to also have some ownership on that. And so that you're going to have families having less post-divorce conflict. So you're not having contempt actions. You're not asking to hold the ex in contempt and put in jail because they didn't pay child support or they're blocking your parenting time. Statistically, when you come up with that solution, it feels more organic and more personal. And so you're going to follow it or at least deviate in a way that is solution oriented. So it helps families be able to have progress. You can separate the business of the marriage, and still realize that you're going to have a long time with the other parent in your co-parenting relationship. So it really does insulate that co-parenting aspect that litigation really throws a monkey wrench in.
Yes, it's adversarial from the start and ripe with conflict of interest, and in the fact that, you know, when you have a traditional litigated divorce, the longer it goes on, the longer the higher the fees go. And in amicable divorce, you know, we're all as a part of a team working to keep the costs lower, to keep the conflict less, and to keep the family unit intact as much as possible. And you can't really put a price on that, the emotional toll of divorce and lowering that. So we're really making a change for people in their lives. And I know this question goes without saying, but which type of divorce do you prefer to practice? Which way, litigated or amicable?
You know, they are both tools for different families. I really enjoy the amicable process. And the reason being is I'm also a trained mediator. So I'm already looking at solutions. I'm trying to find bridge the gap for these families in contested cases. And that mediation cap, you know, it doesn't just sit on the side of my desk when I'm in an ADN case. I'm looking for how do we bridge this gap? And what I appreciate is this is an opposing counsel that I know is not going to blow up the case, make litigation where it doesn't need to be, file frivolous motions, have us in and out of court or sitting for depositions on a family that can't afford any of that. And so and that's even our six-figure households, right? Is
Right.
Depositions and litigation can be very taxing, and he spoke very accurately about it. The emotional tax of open litigation on a family is very triggering. So if we can have that kind of doctor mentality of do no harm and leave these families with the right tools, ADN cases are more rewarding as a litigator because I'm helping a family in a more wholesome way, more practical, setting them off into the world with the right tools, or at least the first steps towards that.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, having worked some cases with you now through ADN, and the whole team approach, you know, where we have every person who is in the ADN network working for the benefit of the client and coming up with solutions in a way that reduces time as well as expense. And again, going back to that emotional toll, there's just no cost, no price you can put on the cost of that or avoiding the cost of that. It's priceless when you can reduce that. So what happens when a couple doesn't want to litigate, but they just can't seem to communicate? Is there some way for those kinds of clients to be able to use the ADN network?
I actually think those are great clients for this process. Amicable divorce network cases do not mean that you're sitting down over coffee and coming up with the solutions together. You're not best friends. You're not going to the movies together. There's a reason you're getting divorced, but you recognize the value of staying out of court, whether that's a risk assessment, right? You're just a very pragmatic, business-minded person who realizes sending it to the judge is basically the only form of legalized gambling in Georgia. Right? You may just like the value of taking control of it. A lot of people also have fears of attorneys just doing a lot of harm to their family unit. And these are attorneys and professionals that are vetted by our peers to be solution oriented, right? We're reasonable billing practices, we're solution oriented. You know, we have a long professional relationship. It doesn't mean that we compromise our advocacy, right? And that's the beauty of the ADN process, is we're still advocates, but we're doing so in a very collaborative, let's find the solutions, let's bridge the gaps, let's see where we can make these two individuals who haven't agreed on something because they're getting divorced. By the nature, you may not be best friends at this point. I actually think that there's a lot of high conflict families that would do even better in the ADN process, because the attorneys are talking, not necessarily the parties. The financial neutrals, like you, Lisa, I know we had a case where you're going to have separate meetings, and it still allows them access to a financial neutral to help organize what the it is we are talking about to divide. But that doesn't mean that everything has to be joint calls where they're face-to-face. With technology and the process in itself, we can structure this so that they may be in a mediation and never see each other. And that's okay. That sometimes can be very helpful. I find some families with younger children who are co-parenting will often want to act like the divorce is not happening when they're face-to-face. So having their attorneys being able to communicate and kind of bifurcate those two worlds for them can help them with that process sometimes. So I think it's a great solution for people who like the concept of not going to litigation, but they don't have to sit down and have the terms all worked out.
Yes, I agree. And, you know, the fact that it's more private, you know, we're not, this is not an open process in a courtroom where anyone can come and sit down and watch. You can schedule various meetings. You can do this at your own pace. And you have a team. Again, you know, just as we saw from the conference, divorce takes more than just one professional, because we all have areas of expertise. And so when you have the legal, the financial, and the emotional support, that forms your three-legged stool that gives you a firm foundation. But then we may need to look at, you know, real estate. So have you been pre-qualified to see if you can refinance the mortgage to stay in the house? Or if you need to sell the house, getting a realtor in early to look at what needs to be done to get the house market ready and get you the highest price for that. And also looking at the financials, you know, any underlying tax issues, insurance matters, credit issues, you know, looking at all of these pieces and assembling the right people together to make sure that you get the best outcome is truly worth its weight in gold. Because like you said, we don't want to see people going back to court afterwards and trying to undo some damage that may have been done by, typically I see a lot of damage done when people haven't been pre-qualified. You know, a wife wants to keep the house, husband takes other assets, but nobody looked at, can the wife qualify beforehand? Can she afford it? And then afterwards, you know, she ends up losing the home in foreclosure or being in contempt before not being able to refinance. And it just makes a big mess. I've seen people spend more on the other side of divorce, on the post-divorce side, than they did in their divorce. So using this process and working with professionals in the ADN network is your best bet for getting all of the topics covered that need to be looked at. So you mentioned about, you know, when a couple doesn't want to litigate, can't communicate, but what about the high conflict couples? Can they still find a way to use this process?
I think that they can, because a lot of the solutions that we will do, and I'm thinking high conflict parents that are going through a divorce, we're still going to be getting the same type of experts involved, right? If I have a couple that is unable to communicate well, they're using a lot of adjectives and adverbs, which are big do not use them. Don't bring up the history, the baggage. When you're talking about a, you know, baseball tournament this weekend, you don't say, since you always forget. That's not a very solution-oriented communication. That's not giving the facts. I'd send a parent like that to a co-parenting class. I'd send them to co-parenting counseling. Sometimes we might elevate it into parent coordination, and we already have those members part of the network. And if we can do that without a deadline because the court's expecting us to be on a trial calendar next month, and we can let it breathe and let them go to this counseling, I would have already been asking for that in a final trial with very toxic co-parenting communication, high conflict individuals. I can now have that person engaged at my own time, tempo, privately. It's not a part of a court order necessarily that, their nosy neighbor can go look in the docket and check out. It's the same value. They only have to commit to the fact that they see the value in the privacy and amicable solutions. Like we've said, amicable does not mean best friends. It just means you see the value in not having litigation explode your family further.
Yes, and there's no price to pay, no price that a family would want to pay to have their family destroyed. I mean, and yet people pay that. That's what happens when they go many times through traditional litigated divorce. They pay for the opportunity to have their families destroyed. And there are better ways, and that's what we're here about. I will also add to that many people think that they're gonna out to get their spouse, they're going to get their day in court, they're going to tell the judge all the things that they have been wronged about, and many times rightfully so, but that's not the best place to do that. Working with the therapist is going to help you to deal with those things that are hurting on your heart and weighing in your head, because you have a 50-50 chance when you go into court, and you're going to spend a lot of money to get there. Like I said, that $15,000 to $25,000 per spouse does not include going to court. That assumes that you settle out of court. So you really are leaving your life matters up to strangers.
Well, Lisa, to that regard, I also remind everyone that having a parent go through divorce is an adverse childhood experience. Yeah. And when we start accumulating these adverse childhood experiences called ACE scores, it can determine risky behavior as adults. It can determine inappropriate attachment figures, that father complex, for a woman having inappropriate romantic relationships as an adult, substance abuse. So it is very important for these children, not just thinking about what works for Timmy at 5, but what type of adult do we want him to be at 25? And so this process can help parents start that path, knowing divorce is automatically going to be a ACE score of 1. Minimize the additional ACE scores.
Why don't you speak a little bit more to the ACE scores, because I'm not sure that everyone is familiar with that.
Right. So, and we all naturally have them, but what they're going to be is children of divorce have a score. If you're relocating and moving, that can be a score. So some of these are not inherently bad. They are just something that impacts a child. Then you have a parent that has substance abuse. That's going to be a score. There's a variety of these things that we know that are going to affect a child in their formation. And when you get to about, I believe, 4 ACE scores, you start having a higher statistic of, as an adult, having additional risky behavior. That could be substance abuse yourself. It could be mental health issues. It could be inappropriate relationships. So if you don't want your child to repeat the pattern of inappropriate partners, lack of ability to hold on to jobs. There's a whole literature out there about that, and perhaps we could spend a whole show on ACE scores in of itself. But the Amicable Divorce Network process is beautiful because it's removing people from that litigation complex, which we already know is going to have long-term effects. Everyone has a friend or experience themselves where they can say, my parents' divorce really traumatized me.
True.
Even as, a 50-year-old looking back, people will say, my parents' divorce really traumatized me because they did X, Y, Z. And if we can set these families on a path where they're not doing that, we're really setting up as a society a better future. for our, functioning members.
I love that. That's really the crux of so much of what we do and how we help families. So thank you for that. What else would you like to share here in our final moments? I know you have a case to run off to as well today. Anything that you can tell us about you personally that or a case that you'd like to share to help people understand that divorce does not have to end as a scary story?
Well, so just a little bit expanding on our training this weekend, we also got additional designation training. So I actually am a certified amicable divorce professional with a special needs designation training. I tend to have a lot of case exposure where children have special needs of varying degrees, a lot of children on the autism spectrum, ADHD, and it's kind of a passion project. I see the Amicable Divorce Network as a way to help families and give back. And I enjoy the children in these cases. I really like to have a child-centered approach. I volunteer with Eichenstein, teaching special needs children how to ride bikes. It's a child-centered practice. And so I love that I'm finding other professionals that are able to do that as well. And Lisa, I sing your praises because attorneys usually go to law school to avoid doing math. And I think some of that 15 to 20,000 is when attorneys try to do math. They try to do their own marital balance sheet. They try to do their own financial affidavit. And while that's certainly a resource that we can help families with, we don't need people with literature backgrounds trying to do all that math. So Lisa, you've been integral in helping families really from more modest means to very high asset cases, just gather that information in a very efficient manner that's much cheaper than an attorney's office would ever be able to do, even with the most well-meaning staff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I know that we'll be continuing to do that. And I am very grateful to have you in my network of quality professionals to refer to, Melody. So thank you for that. So we're going to wrap up the show here. So thank you again for being a guest today. It's been wonderful. And if we can see the slides now, I am going to share with you that you can download some resources here at divorcetownusa.com. You can get the Divorcetown USA roadmap you see here, which includes an ebook that explains each of these options. You'll see things like Put Kids First Parkway and Financials First Freeway and Amicable Avenue. Again, where all of this is to keep you away from Duke It Out Drive and Bigger Bucks Boulevard, folks. There are other ways to come into the process. And we also offer many free articles and videos, and our marketplace features some of our favorite products and services that we found to help you through the divorce process. So again, you can find that at divorcetownusa.com. At Divorce Money Matters, you can download your free financial fitness kit. This is a divorce financial fitness kit. It will help you get better organized so you can get to know more about your money matters during divorce. Excuse me. The kit also includes a working Excel spreadsheet and a list of must-ask questions for when you do meet with a family law attorney. And again, that's available at divorcemoneymatters.com. And then our Divorcetown USA also sponsors a virtual divorce help and hope support group. And this is found through meetup.com. We meet once or twice a month via Zoom. So you can come from anywhere in the country or the world. Meeting dates and times are always posted on Divorcetown USA in the events section as well. And next week, we are going to be talking about soul expansion and conscious separation. And this will be with our special guest, Daniel Allen, who is a writer, speaker, and spiritual and emotional counselor. So make sure you join us for that. Always here Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, and we look forward to seeing you then. And thank you again for being here.